Okay, good morning, everyone. It's March 20th, 2025, and we are going to begin the Legislative Committee meeting. My name is Teresa Thompson, and I am Chair of the committee. I would like to welcome new member Bruce Rafel, who is appointed to the Legislative Committee. There will be a more formal introduction by President Tu when the CBA meeting begins, but we are happy to have you on this committee. Welcome. The CBA has provided the opportunity for the public to participate via the WebEx platform. When we take public comments, we will begin by taking public comments from those individuals attending the meeting here in the Sacramento location. I will then ask the moderator to open up the lines for public comment. You will be allotted up to 5 minutes for public comment. I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Reed to establish a quorum.
Patricia Batchelor.
Here.
Nancy Dong.
Here.
Carrie Ann Farrell Hines.
Here.
Bruce Rafel.
Here.
Joseph Rosenbaum.
Here.
Teresa Thompson.
Here.
And Evangeline Ward.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. The CBA's mission is to protect consumers by ensuring only qualified licensees practice public accountancy in accordance with established professional standards. This mission is derived from the statutory requirement that protection of the public shall be the highest priority for the California Board of Accountancy in exercising its licensing, regulatory, and disciplinary functions. Whenever the protection of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protection of the public shall be paramount. Turning to our agenda, I'd like to start with item 1, public comments for items not currently on the agenda. Are there any comments here in Sacramento? Seeing none, moderator, are there any comments from the public via WebEx?
There are no members of the public on WebEx at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item 2, I'd like to approve minutes of the January 23, 2025 Legislative Committee meeting. Do I need a motion? Do I have a motion? Ms. Hines?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second. Evangeline Ward.
Thank you. Ms. Reed, do we need a vote? Oh, excuse me. Any public comment here in Sacramento? Seeing none, any public comments on the WebEx?
There are still no people on WebEx.
Oh, perfect, thank you. Okay, Ms. Reed.
Patricia Batchelor.
Yes.
Nancy Dong.
Yes.
Carrie Ann Farrell Hines.
Yes.
Bruce Rafel.
Yes.
Joe Rosenbaum.
Yes.
Teresa Thompson.
Abstain.
And Evangeline Ward.
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. For item 3, we have a written report which contains the California Board of Accountancy 2025 Legislative Tracking Chart, the 2025 Legislative Calendar, and considerations for taking positions on legislation. Any comments on this? Okay, perfect, thank you. We can go ahead and continue to item 4, which will be presented by Mr. David Hempel, Information and Planning Officer, and it will be the update on California Board of Accountancy sponsored legislation, Assembly Bill 1175, Accountants. Mr. Hempel?
That's right. Thank you, Chair Thompson. Good morning, members. I am David Hempel, Information and Planning Officer with the CBA. I will be presenting 2 items to you this morning. We'll start off with an update on Assembly Bill 1175, which is the CBA's sponsored legislation. It was authored by Assembly Member Jackie Irwin and was officially introduced on February 21st. It includes language previously approved by the CBA to provide a simplified, clear, and flexible set of licensure requirements to practice accountancy in California. It would also revise the practice privilege and mobility provisions, enabling greater flexibility for out-of-state licensees to practice in this state while increasing the safeguards to protect California consumers. Some of the specific provisions include eliminating the 150 semester unit requirement for licensure, and establishing the minimum educational requirements as a bachelor's degree with an accounting concentration of courses. Setting the educational requirements for examination and licensure to be the same. Increasing the general accounting experience requirement to 2 years. Authorizing advanced degrees in accounting-related subjects to substitute for 1 year of general accounting experience, and to provide the authority for the CBA to establish regulations to recognize the completion of specific certificate or training programs as substituting for a portion of the general accounting experience. Authorizing the CBA to recognize specific accounting degrees as meeting all educational requirements, thereby creating an expressway for transcript review. Maintaining the existing educational requirements until January 1st, 2029 to permit a transition period. And establishing modernized mobility that provides for a CPA equals CPA model. These mobility provisions continue to maintain important consumer protection guardrails, including authorizing the CBA to remove a state from the mobility program if it believes the state is jeopardizing our consumer protection mission. The CBA will need to develop regulations to enact many of the provisions in AB 1175. At the January meeting, the policy discussions regarding the accounting concentration were the beginning of these efforts that will continue throughout the year ahead of the rulemaking, which will occur once the bill is adopted. AB 1175 would take effect on January 1, 2026, should it be signed by the governor this fall, although there would be a 6-month implementation window for the licensure requirements. This additional time will allow the CBA to complete the necessary regulations, update the website and systems with the new information, and of course continue our outreach to those affected by the changes. The licensing provisions would then take effect on July 1, 2026. AB 1175 has been referred to the Assembly Business and Professions Committee for its first policy hearing, which is scheduled for April 8th at 9 a.m. It is customary for a CBA member to attend and provide brief comments in support of the bill, so staff will coordinate with CBA leadership to identify a member to participate. We anticipate the hearing to last most of the morning, so this would be a full-day commitment for whoever will be joining us. Now, after the bill was introduced, staff identified amendments that are needed to ensure the statutory language aligns with what the CBA previously reviewed and approved. These include changing the numbering and alignments of portions of Business and Professions Code Section 5093.2, updating references from person to individual, and clarifying some of the terminology on the degrees. Staff would also like to propose an amendment clarifying the CBA's authority to establish regulations to accept certificates or training programs as a substitute for a portion of the experience requirement. It will also stipulate that the applicant could not use both an advanced degree and a certificate or training program to count towards the 2 years of experience. Staff recommends the LC make a motion to authorize the executive officer to work with President 2 and the author's office to propose these amendments to AB 1175. I will now turn it back to Chair Thompson for questions, comments, and a possible motion.
Thank you, Mr. Hemphill. I'd like to open it up for questions or comments. Mr. Rosenbaum?
So question on the new change that you want to put in regarding the certificate counting for a year of experience or some portion thereof. One of the things that NASBA has put in theirs that we do not have in their Uniform Accountancy Act that we don't have in our proposed legislation is the existing pathway. And I can't find where that was analyzed here, but I know it's in here somewhere. But is the thought this update to sort of recognize that does make sense, essentially keeping the existing pathway, which would be a bachelor's degree, 30 hours in an approved accounting program, and then only 1 year of experience?
I'd like to pass that to Mr. Franzella.
Thank you, and I'm having to fill in for Miss Center today. She's enjoying a well-deserved vacation, so I'm going to do my best to respond appropriately. So a couple of things. The 150 is for the bachelor's plus 30 piece that's in the UAA is in item 2I. So if you're trying to find the reference to it. Secondly, this bill does maintain that legacy pathway for a period of time until December 31st, 2028. So there will be that 150 and one continuing. This certificate program could be seen as similar to, but it's not designed to be a 30-unit supplement like the UAA one is today. It definitely will help individuals who might be doing a change of life or change of career path idea that don't want to pay for the master's because it's, you know, maybe cost prohibitive. And the certificate program will likely not substitute for a full year, but some portion thereof, and that's what that amendment would do, maybe 6 months, maybe 9 months. It'll depend on the board's discussions during the regulations. But when staff were developing the model and working with the board on this idea of the bachelor's with the accounting concentration, the exam, and 2 years experience, there was a concerted discussion to focus on the degree and the accounting subjects and not just have units. And so that's why you don't see within our proposal and the board's final, the bill language that we see before us of anything that references plus 30 units, because it wasn't about seat time. It was about how does it relate back to the accounting degree or the profession. And so these certificates would be something maybe like the UC San Diego has a certificate program, or Santa Clara has a certificate program that give you college level units. So they would probably be similar to the 30, but they could be less, they could be more. So I hope that, I know I went a long way around, but there's not going to be a plus 30 model that we have.
Okay, thank you. I had one other question, and that was sitting for the exam. There was a mention in your written report, but I couldn't find it, talking about the two ways applicants may sit for the exam prior to meeting the minimum educational requirements. Is that both for the exam and for, that's not for the licensure, but is that still in there, the sitting for the exam early?
Yeah, there's no change to the examination requirements. Well, okay, as far as that is concerned, there could be the additional when we discuss the regulations, when we discuss, no, I should stop talking.
So the reference that we have in here, there's no, we align the licensure and the education requirements to be the same. So there's not a plus amount of units for the, for sitting for the exam. They're going to be based on the decisions that the board made in January, and they'll continue those to hold true. Then it'll be 24 accounting subjects, 24 business related, and 3 units of ethics. The sitting before you complete those requirements is only obviously available for the exam. And it's if you are within 6 months of meeting all those educational requirements and are just short your bachelor's degree as well. So the early entry, which has been in place for a couple of years now. And then the other opportunity is if they're, some institutions have a dual degree where you earn your bachelor's and your master's concurrently. So you might have met all your bachelor degree requirements and your accounting subjects, but it's not conferred on your transcript yet. So there's an opportunity when you hit that mark to sit for the exam as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
In terms of timing, how does this line up with the rollout of changes by NASBA?
Do you mean the UAA model that they're, I don't know what their anticipation is. They have a 60-day comment period on the exposure draft that you have in your materials today. And then that'll go back to NASBA to evaluate, and the AICPA to evaluate any comments and go through their process. I don't see some delayed effective date. So presumably when they approve them for insertion into the UAA, they would ostensibly take effect. So theirs would likely take effect under, well, again, mindful the UAA has no force or effect, but they would go into the UAA upon their adoption. So likely be done before anything that we're doing and completing.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are no additional comments or questions, just a reminder, the recommendation is that the CBA make a motion to authorize the executive officer to work with President 2 and the author's office to propose amendments to AB 1175 consistent with those identified in this analysis. Does anyone care to?
I will so move.
Thank you, Mr. Rosemont. Seconded by Mr. Rafel.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on item 4 here in Sacramento?
Jason Fox with the California Society of CPAs. We're in support of the amendments and the clarifications. They're concepts that we've discussed with the board since the kind of the inception of this kind of approach to the shifting the licensure model. And so I think these are important kind of clarifying, adjusting, amendments. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. I don't believe we have anyone on the WebEx. So Ms. Reed, can you take a vote?
Evangeline Ward,
Yes.
Teresa Thompson, Joe Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Bruce Rafel,
Yes.
Carrie Ann Farrell Hines,
Yes.
Nancy Dong,
Yes.
and Patricia Batchelor.
Yes.
The motion carries.
And Mr. Franzella?
Thank you. I just wanted to take a moment to extend my appreciation to Cal CPA, especially Jason Fox and Denise and their assistance in kind of working on the legislative side to help us meet with legislative staff, the Assembly and Senate members, and then helping us secure Ms. Irwin as an author for this bill.
Thank you for that. Mr. Hemphill, would you like to continue with item 5, the review and consideration of possible positions on legislation the California Board of Accountancy is monitoring?
I would. Thank you, Chair Thompson. So for item 5, there are 9 bills working their way through the legislature that CBA staff are currently monitoring under this agenda item. Since it is early in the session, many of these measures are not fully developed yet. Some exist only as spot bills. Only one item, House Resolution 7, was recognized. It recognized February 17th, 2025 as Enrolled Agents Day. That has been adopted. Other bills that we are monitoring have to do with the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act, charter school audits, artificial intelligence auditors, and licensing waivers and exemptions during states of emergency, just to name a few. Speaking of charter school audits, there are additional bills on this topic that we currently have our internal monitor list, which is a separate list from these 9 bills, that will be amended in such a way that may affect the CBA. Staff is working with CBA leadership to determine next steps and will present more information as it becomes available. And as the bills continue moving through the legislature and evolve into legislation that may impact the practice of public accountancy or impact the operations of the CBA, staff will prepare an analysis and the bill will be presented at a subsequent CBA and LC meeting. There is no action needed on this item, and that concludes my presentation. I will hand it back to Chair Thompson, but I'm happy to answer any questions the members may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hemphill. Any questions or comments from the members? Mr. Hemphill, I have just a general question for you on the procedures of tracking. Are the authors of these bills, are they brought to the CBA for comment initially before they're sponsored, or does the CBA monitor and track legislation and then once something is identified, connect with the author for additional details or tracking?
We are in communication with author's office when we are going to take a position. We do offer them the opportunity to come and participate in a CBA meeting if they would like. So we are, staff is in contact with our office to let them know. Then when the board does take a position, we send them the letter to let them know of our position and state that.
Okay, thank you.
I
Yes,
could just
Ms.
add on, we're usually in contact with them. There's usually some clarification questions that we try to get from staff. If there's a fact sheet, that we're trying to get that as much information as possible. We're also communicating with the Department of Consumer Affairs. They have a legislative unit that's tracking legislation for all of DCA and all the individual boards. So we try to just be upfront and clear in terms of our analysis, providing that to the author and their staff, and really just trying to keep that open line of communication.
Thank you. Okay. I will go ahead and open it up to public comments here in Sacramento. Mr. Fox, when you're ready.
Morning. It's been a busy morning. Jason Fox with the California Society of CPAs. Just a couple of general comments as the board looks at legislation, and certainly we're the first wave. Bills have been introduced. There's going to be amendments. There's going to be a lot more that the board would look at. I just want to flag a couple that we're looking at from a profession standpoint that we believe or anticipate will have significant implications for the profession in areas where the board may want to take a closer look at to see if there's board implications on that standpoint. Mr. Hemphill mentioned there's a package of legislation that relates to LEA audits or school or charter school audits, and there's going to be some provisions that we're aware of that will be amended into those that could have significant impacts for CPAs that service those types of clients, and then there's potential implications for the board that I know Mr. Frenzel and I've worked on in past kind of legislative conversations. So the board should keep an eye on those. The AI audit provisions, there's a lot of AI stuff out there. There's going to be more. There's a package of bills that do include references for AI audits. We're kind of working through what they mean by AI audits and how does that impact practitioners working in that space, and what does a certified or registered AI auditor look like. So kind of we're working to gather information on that. That's something the board may want to take a closer look at. And then SB 788 is one we're a little bit more heavily involved. This is kind of a more technical kind of piece, but we've been working with the legislature on kind of addressing some confusion that's arisen out of this interplay of two sections of law that where the board oversees CPAs and CPA firms, and particularly the practice privilege programs and how tax preparers work across state lines, and the existing kind of Tax Preparers Act under the CTEC or California Tax Education Council and how they regulate tax preparers. There's a exemption for CPAs, but the way it's structured under that section of law and the way the CBA oversees CPAs and CPA firms, there's confusion that we've seen from our practitioners, and so we're trying to address some clarification on that. There'll be amendments into that bill that kind of speak a little bit more about that, but just want to put it on the board's radar. So that's a lot there, but it's going to be a busy legislative year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Okay, as there are no additional public comments and no one on the WebEx, I believe we can conclude our legislative committee meeting. Thank you.